Today we are gathered at an event that celebrates innovation and one branch of the Internet of Things, the connected vehicle. Many organizations in this space struggle with how to sustain existing in-market products and services while also developing the next generation of innovation. I'll be talking today about how to align the organization in support of sustainable in-market products and services without impeding the success of the next generation, without blocking innovation. The heart of my message today: a focused and well-managed Program Management Office, or PMO, will successfully position us to manage through the coming disruptive innovation. But in parallel, we must own the change by driving the future, not being consumed by it. Clayton Christensen from Harvard first described the concept of disruptive innovation in a 1995 article. People often mistake revolutionary sustaining innovation for disruptive innovation. So I want to be clear what we mean by this term. Disruptive innovation doesn't refine and doesn't improve in the conventional sense. It creates new markets and new value networks. Often, it doesn't involve particularly innovative technology or necessarily whole new processes, but it does fundamentally change our relationship with our customers, society at large, the government, controlling regulations, the macroeconomy, in short, the world we live in. The PC and the cell phone are recent examples of disruptive innovations. They've changed the way we interact with each other, our world, our lives. A clear example of disruptive innovation is also the automobile itself. The combination of mass production and raising workers' wages fundamentally changed the world in ways that Henry Ford could never have foreseen. Instead of a faster buggy, the fabrics of political, social, and economic realities shifted. New infrastructure was built. Economic geography was transformed, and in many ways, the mass adoption of the vehicle set the foundation for the American consumer culture. So are telematics technologies sustaining innovations or truly disruptive innovations? The answer will tell us how much the world, including the organization of our businesses, will have to change to accommodate. If telematics technologies are simply sustaining innovations, then we just need to solve the challenges we see today. If telematics technologies are truly disruptive innovations, then we cannot afford to be complacent. With the world changing around us, the old processes, mindsets, technologies, and controls are not going to bring success. An innovative PMO aligning the organization to take advantage of the new value relationships and explore new business models are key to thriving in the new world. Only through being able to absorb the change will we be successful. Let's take the example of a key protagonist to all of us here today at Telematics Update. An auto industry executive. This individual represents a company, a brand, a culture, a business that has been successful potentially for 100 years. He knows how to market. He knows how to sell. He manages a massive supply chain. He knows how to work with the unions. He knows his customer. And ultimately, he delivers a quality product at a fair price. Through this cycle, there's been great success in delivering vehicles to the marketplace. But now a telematics vendor offers a new product to make the auto exec's customer more safe and secure. Let's call this Gen 1 Telematics. This was the opportunity to offer roadside assistance and vehicle recovery to the customer to generate a competitive edge and more revenue for the auto manufacturer. But there are some challenges that come with Gen 1. The auto exec needs to understand what the product is and what its implications are. So do his people and his dealers and his customers. He has a limited number of makes and models and has to figure out when and how to roll these new products into his existing product line. He must integrate the product cycle of telematics with the product cycle of his vehicles. The dealers are resistant. The customers don't know if they want it or if they want to pay, more importantly. So all of these questions exist in how to make this fit into the existing model. Part of that is the auto exec creates a new telematics department that coordinates with the existing enterprise or global PMO and has to figure out how this new department and technology fit in with the rest of the company. He has new suppliers and vendors to his already massive portfolio, and all the while he grapples with two very fundamental challenges: maintaining organizational alignment and focus as his organization is changing, and adding new skills he needs for these new products, while maintaining all of the skills and talent, the organization, and culture that has made him successful for the last 100 years. Creating this department and integrating it with the existing PMO, as many OEMs did, was generally sufficient to ride out the Gen 1 storm. But this is not disruptive innovation. Next comes what we'll call Gen 2, infotainment. Gen 2 brings a whole new set of challenges. This is the stage when many of the OEMs brought in consultants and outside specialists to help navigate the unfamiliar landscape. New questions are posed. The hardware is dictated by the parent company overseas, but the software is developed in the US. So who controls the content? How are we going to line up software development to the vehicle life cycle? Can the local market justify the development costs, and do we leverage the investment globally? What's the return on my investment? Are customers willing to pay for these services? Do they even want them? And back to the core problems, maintaining and sustaining organizational change and alignment, and how to add these new skills while maintaining those that have made the company successful and allowed it to do what it does best, make great cars. This was the point when many automotive organizations also realized specialized governments, basically a telematics PMO, was needed. So, Generation 2. Many new challenges. But this is still just the tip of the iceberg. We still do not have truly disruptive innovation. Next, we start tackling model years 14 to 16, mobility, and the end-to-end experience. We're almost to the Internet of Things now. We have more challenges dealing with the ever more complex telematic ecosystem, which is still highly fragmented in vendors and solutions, with each automotive organization taking their own approach. But we still do not have disruptive innovation. While these are ever greater levels of disruption and have introduced new challenges, the auto exec is still dealing with the same fundamental issues, maintaining and sustaining organizational change and adding new skills to what has made him historically successful. So what's next? What will the next generation bring? Let's call it Gen X. What is next is where we will see telematics reach a level of disruptive innovation, where very fundamental changes to the way we do business can be dictated to us from outside the automotive organizations and outside the automotive industry. That's right, we could see the next steps dictated from outside the normal automotive ecosystem altogether. This is where the changes in completely unrelated products can have effects that ripple through and unravel the way we've always done business. These challenges and the impacts they have from other ecosystems and other pieces of our economy will have changes for us that we could not foresee. Imagine a world where the next cell phone defines how we will interact with our customers within the vehicle. The challenge, of course, is that the auto industry does not have a history of rapidly adapting to change. Historically, the OEMs have used very long product cycles. It was 18 years after the first Model T rolled off the line before Ford introduced shatter-resistant glass. It took 27 years to get the first automatic transmission. In the future, change will happen so quickly that it may not be possible for the auto exec to predict the features for the next model year, as it relates to telematics. In order to deal with this increasing disruption, the change that is coming, we need to make our changes to our organizations that will allow us and our companies to consistently adapt to innovation. And a part of this is to create an adaptable and innovative PMO. We need to think about our business models and adapt those as well. So let's talk about how we do this. We're all familiar with a simple business strategy framework. A company has a set of business objectives, whether maximizing profit, increasing shareholder value, or some other highest level goal for the organization. The company sets its business strategy in order to produce those business objectives, and the subsidiary departments, like manufacturing, operations, or connected vehicle, then set their specific local strategies and execute against that, all of which tie back to the overarching business strategy. So this overarching strategy is the first ingredient, but it is not the end of what we need. We need to add our people, process, and technologies, the standard 3 supporting components of business. We also include some other ingredients, like organizational change management for good measure, and we get our agile, innovative business. Now, obviously, we need the right people, the right processes, and the right technologies. So let's talk a bit about exactly what we're looking for here. In terms of people, we look at 2 groups: internal, the employees of the OEM, and external, whether it be a strategic partner, a vendor, consultants, or temporary staffing providers. For our employees, as we look within the OEM, no real surprises. Dedicated, hardworking, well-trained, but at the same time, we should be striving to develop the employee who understands the global strategy. They act locally, independently towards that strategy. In this way, they are bought in, and we create that agile, innovative organization. For external partners, many of the same traits: agile, responsive, experienced, intelligent, and a deep understanding of the automotive business and the supporting businesses around that. But more than that, in order to produce a successful relationship, these external resources cannot just be simply a trusted advisor, but actual partners. They need to be proactive and driven, yes, but also someone who is skeptical of the obvious answers, who pushes us to take our own paradigms and look at them in a very analytical manner. The ability to communicate and have this two-way dialogue is essential and core to us being successful as a team. And as we travel down that road together and look at the ways that we can analyze the new business, understand the impact, we are on the right track to keep each milestone on schedule and ultimately deliver the product launches. In many ways, technology is the least difficult piece of this. Obviously, we need to have the right tools to facilitate our team's communication, the ability to execute our processes and allow the PMO to execute effectively. We need to have the right tools to capture data and the right tools to turn that data into meaningful information so that we can gain meaningful insight into our customers, the market, our competition, all of these things allowing us to make the right strategic decisions. We have to arm our people with the right tools and technology in order to produce the Telematics products in which our customers will find true value. This is how we can produce an organization with the flexibility to thrive in an uncertain world, both for the larger organization and within it, to the Telematics PMO. But these are essentially defensive measures that allow the company to react to a rapidly changing world. Once we have the adaptable organization, we have dedicated creative teams who are able to independently act locally to support our global business strategy, to turn all the inputs of the business into the outputs, the products we sell. When this happens, it frees up executives and managers to think about the future, to manage above the line, to act instead of react. Now, with these strategic resources are no longer constantly putting out tactical fires, we're moving from crisis to crisis in an escalating series of reactions. Through this approach, the PMO and tactical teams have a handle on the day-to-day operations of the company. This sets us up for success going forward, as now we can actually look to the future in a meaningful way. But will this be enough? If we create an adaptive and flexible telematics PMO, we can certainly survive, if not thrive, in the new environment. Our success is stronger on the execution. But there are still, of course, dangers. There are still challenges to overcome. Borders didn't die because the print book died. Amazon put the nail in the coffin for Borders. Barnes & Noble still survives for the moment. They continue to adapt. But they've only bought time. We don't want to just buy time. We want to go on the offensive. To do that, a company has to generate innovation, even if that is at the cost of cannibalizing their own business in the short term. A separate group is needed, an innovation or R&D group, a skunk works, if you will, whose focus is on the future and creating innovation. But even this is its dangers. And just because you're on top today does not mean you will be tomorrow. Blockbuster had its day in the sun until Netflix came along. Redbox was able to briefly take number one in that industry, but is now on the ropes because Netflix kept up on the innovation. They resurged with streaming video even in the face of a very public PR meltdown in 2011. So an example of an industry with dynamic change and innovation being key to success. In this realm, in telematics, when it comes to innovation, there are some very obvious questions we need to be thinking about. And it's something the OEMs and our peers are asking today. So what if the OEMs deliberately funded an R&D organization with the objective of cannibalizing the current in-market connected vehicles? What if the traditional OEM product planning and design organizations followed that design, went forward with things that actually were meant to cannibalize what we've already done? How will OEMs create proprietary disruptive innovation, given the current dynamic supply chain of Tier 1 vendors that operate cross-industry? All of these things are happening today. They are all questions being asked by the OEMs right now. So will these activities help them be ready when telematics becomes a disruptive innovation? Will OEMs be prepared for the new organizational shifts that result from the creation of new business value and new areas of expertise? How will OEMs develop business intelligence core competency to strategically drive telematics innovation and customer experience? How will OEMs use BI to predict new product uses with new customer segments? And when will the OEMs create a viable telematics business model given the demotorization trend? All of these questions lead to us facing ourselves and asking, are we truly innovative? Innovating is difficult, and sustaining innovation is even more difficult. It can be frightening. Michael Mortz of Sequoia Capital noted that Amazon was brave enough to cannibalize its own products with Kindle and ebook, and they never looked back. Even a company like Apple has a history of missteps to go along with its brilliant successes, and some of those successes came directly at the expense of other Apple products. But Steve Jobs said, if you don't cannibalize yourself, someone else will. The Gen 1 Telematics organization and the Gen 2 PMO had a time and place, but the old PMO isn't going to work in the new world. We must institute flexible stability in our next generation management structure while we simultaneously drive the next generation of telematics. A Turkish philosopher once said, the only constant in life is change. The change we have coming will change our industry and change our businesses. We must prepare now and be inside that change.